so like near student in the super library things that never was like we don't need having that this that photo doc or workshop system to might be like that kind of thing with depending on the dimensions, and that might be the sole reason for like the like that secret to like the secret library that certain with that Wednesday in it. Might be like that 25% situation and like it that Mr. Kilometer membership that would might be definitely one thought we at often like finding about Wednesday's like two different preparation into that secret library that we won't be like the case that we might be able to touch. And so that available information on that Wednesday who would be at that point in that situation of like perhaps kind of that situation within that secret library would be totally panic. But like at the same time would be perhaps with that and like with the hiding all that panic it's like the scenario that I would try and then stay with the straight away, like going up the stairs and trying to like just pray they will all sorts of putting in all of sorts of effort to like open that way the same uh with same talk. But like regardless of that, what are strategy Wednesday you like that so many shots like the scenario that I'm able to so like at that point Wednesday is panicking even more like scenario that I'm doing and like Wednesday going down and basically Wednesday at that point would be like would be at that point would be dealing like totally giving up and so like at that point I'm like Wednesday would be totally spreading like the top of like basically Wednesday once it's like morning Wednesday having let's say scrap in that secret library till morning and basically Wednesday having no other choice but to like shout out from that secret library and have like one of like the students or like faculties or teachers or like basically like here Wednesday and that way to like let Wednesday out of like that secret library. It would be along the lines on the like Wednesday would be like thing of like such an embarrassing scenario would be along the lines like Wednesday would be feeling at that point is that movie for like Wednesday to like even be able to get it. So that way I'm just putting that Wednesday to be known that he about to like give up hope on like being a like a kid. So like at that point that Wednesday so they're deciding to like spend like the remaining of like the night basically by in that like secret library last goes up to like check out that as many books purchase books in that secret library as she can. So like that way I'm going to find that since they maybe like going through and reading a bunch of like books in that secret library and I will find that those bunch of books are so different will be all containing like picture pictorial future prediction kind of thing might be like the case. So like that place by that I'm referring that Wednesday when going through those books that we actually would be seeing close to that events which in it and very important and also events that might see eventually happen about to like happen in like institutes of in that Wednesday's like open space process in that never know. I feel like that's the situation might go through those books in that means of in that way of like historical drawing thinking along the lines of like scenario that I'm doing. But like Wednesday not being able to realize that it's like accused of promotion point. It's like and that's not only assuming that like it might be some random point to go along the lines that much putting into like thinking scenario that I'm doing. So like by going through this like one by one like into the like where until ending up like taking pulling one of like the books and like completing like most likely at that point one like they will be taking out one specific book like at that point like but instead of finding out that basically that book that putting out of that book might be that it's the key to that open a secret or escape from like the secret totally different escape from like the secret library. With like the scenario that so like the secret door like within like the secret library like opening up and basically through that door like in that so the point was to be like a narrow passageway and Wednesday, like exploring that narrow passageway and ending up at like that exact spot close to that Nevermore. That narrow passageway leading Wednesday to this like opening, secret opening in this like exact location, which the point ending up being in that location where like all the recent crimes to that forest there like the recent crime multiple crimes that close to like all that pages. Just like in the scenario that I looked at. So like at that point I'm looking at Wednesday a person might be when I'm fully aware, like the PM in that they might have fully been might have maybe using like Wednesday like computer and tech and say by now might be okay aware of like all the recent crimes that friends of like involving three victims that have taken place that look like the victim like happening on the every day once they had joined like no more like about this like about this that once they were looking up on like on the net about like Nevermore and like Jericho. That at that point like she might have found all this like recent news like finds recent multiple three points that have taken place in the suppose like Nevermore. But and might be talking about that about when like presence might be like actually those that they were finished. So like yeah, at that point once like Wednesday that went through about the manipulation through like secret and about start with we making it to that exact cost. Like at that point, I'm looking like Wednesday will be straight away thing that basically will be straight away not out of picking one and that the stuff possible culprit behind those multiple crimes. Without that, definitely from that perspective, that Wednesday might have definitely by person like Wednesday will be only strongly feeling that like on like only target is like Wednesday and that Wednesday will also feeling that Rowan is definitely not of the realistic chat, but like someone who like since like Wednesday when finding like that suspicious enough from like serious like group that Wednesday assuming that mask the possibility that mask belongs to like Rowan itself like definitely to take the representation that like that must totally might totally belong to that stage as part of that with student society group in which that Savior as well as that Bianca might be members of might be like a related to the especially non-production. But like things like Wednesday straight away assume that must might totally belong to that role that on finding that mask like what Wednesday might have felt and startup family might have been that was that secret student society group might have probably taken advantage of that might have already knew about that around that mothers that having that share point about like this that drawing said like around that mother had that drawing like Christian past that maybe that due to that around that being so that when even revealing that to that husband stay that around being so passionate about that wanting to that save never more and about just that mothers that wishes and everything. So definitely Owen might have revealed this like facial information to that multiple students. So that instead person might be feeling around the lines also that the other members of like the student society group that might have had this like realistic desire to that probably make a fool out of that work and basically by lack of me losing that this lack losing this lack information that's like taught me so extremely important to that around against that by using it against like around by taking advantage of like around like nail by turning around against like Wednesday like Wednesday person even though the person might be actually maybe talking to the that like that's wrong that like form believes that like no that might be like not about like Wednesday might be along the lines like you're saying feeling that but there that wrong might be actually not Wednesday and like no might be actually somebody else along the lines like Wednesday and person maybe believing is definitely not wrong. So like these like other members of student student society might have taken advantage of like the wrong and like how important it is to that around to like turn to make a fool out of that wrong by turning around against like Wednesday to whom like based on the members of like the student society group might have had like some sort of like might have targeted might have been along the lines like Wednesday might have felt that Wednesday might have also felt that may like the possibility of like Priyanka Barclay maybe being one of like the members of like this secret student society group and maybe like also possibly being like Priyanka a scenario possibly and Priyanka Barclay like manipulating around and turning around against like Wednesday due to like Wednesday being a target for like the dark along the lines that as well of like a cognitive that Wednesday major logic theory fucking stuff level so like that we're going to manage to control different like even while through that narrow process like from like physical library Wednesday will be making it might be making it to like this everything what were like the kind all those kinds of taken place like Wednesday still not at also picking a point the positive like a point that being the culprit behind those points but like until like Wednesday might be the only feelings that is and then still you also feeling that like definitely as for like Owen being able to like tackle like the in the like super library might have definitely be to like the vision like that vision power which like Owen might have definitely interpret from that point would be along the lines like when they would give okay something would be feeling and feeling definitely not very like when they having found like containing strong thing like was uh so as well like at present like was feeling exactly that like that was like the vision powers of like our own might have been which might only exist might have been like soul factor that might have made it possible for like own to be able to like have like super library. And like once we at present at that point we'll be strongly feeling that this is so like the true culprit behind like all of like multiple crimes that took place in like the past post like now more recently might be definitely like the possibility might be like also the strongly feeling of like the possibility of that it being either being or like content being like the culprit behind this crime or like beings alone or like beings and content together. But the along the lines like Wednesday at that point strongly will be feeling at that point is like the scenario that so like that way from that point on like Wednesday deciding to like secretly uh change things up and basically Wednesday like totally but like things felt like Wednesday starting her spike of like uh beings as well as like content from that point on. With that absolute intent to like cash the like kind of while like they will be mutually committing like the next crime, attempting to like commit like the next crime. In that there is a cross close to like no that would be along the lines like Wednesday it would be at that point line talking another thing. So like at that point like Wednesday might be also thinking that literally we either Vince or like John Hill might be having like the power to like transform say transform into like the monster. So definitely that, and that might be like this like monster that like basically the Tyler's father like the sort of so badly is like investigating and like hoping to like find might be also phenomenized like mistake might be totally thing is also the similar to that point of like the scenario that I was like. So it also like like there will be that part of like mistake that might also be confused at the same time due to that mistake. Uh, due to that it's also being like a monster that had saved Wednesday from like the well, was about like they always in like the box. So definitely that part might still due to that scenario being a contradicting scenario. Yeah, like even at that point, like when friends only friends might like coming down to that conclusion of that like the possibility of like there being in actually not one monster but like two monsters from procedurally in like the box goes to like no the along the lines that if they will come down to like conclusion of and they will be seeing since like the monster that had saved mistake from that launch attack was like uh, a male that means when they might have definitely know that definitely not definitely once they will be straight away come to like losing that like that monster that had saved mistake from that launch attack definitely not all being like neither being like fountain using the form but like while like the monster that's like going around like something for the kinds like in that box also like now what might be definitely like the realistic monster which might be like either him or like someone in their effective platform might be along the lines once they will be coming down to like the conclusion of at that point it's like the scenario that I was only like so like once they will be come down to the conclusion that like the monster that has saved Wednesday from the concept that might be the good monster and like so bad villanistic monster might be that being as well as or like might be enough lines of like the conclusion that like Wednesday will be coming down to both like in the scenario that I'm remembering. So like the new friendship right now that it might have been exactly the years back that like the what we got from for like led by like the captain Motisha like being has left about by myself one like the focus might have been like the minimum question. So like that might have been such an absolute shock for like for Edgar Allan Poe at that point might be like that because like even back then like the focus might have been more like the focus but like Edgar Allan Poe's like just like father as well as like grandfather might have or one might have been individuals who might have studied doing that nevermore and might have been winners of that program. So like if you're all the way back from that, it might have been all the way back from Edgar Allan Poe's like grandfather's time period that like the both race might have been known as like the focus. Maybe might have been like it is due to like maybe like Edgar Allan or like it might have been since like Edgar Allan since like the time period since like Edgar Allan was like part of that one like the both of that basically due to like simultaneously it being from like the same family like individuals like who might have ended up becoming like the leaders of like the both of might have happened. So definitely, and they might have consistently even want like the both of each year, like it might have been like and there are sports like South Africans like Jericho uh team that might have been winning like the both. And that way like this like, name of like the sport race might have been ended up becoming sport that might have been like this especially among them. So like during like Edgar Allan Poe's like I did it during my he was like studying in like no academy like that point like as a different technique motivation might have like slowly started to like suffer like since like the way like nutrition joined like more like in different student like since then like I'm thinking that Edgar Allan Poe who might have been so optimistic while joining like more probably might have been the case like he might have been absolutely confident in like more like confident in like him definitely carrying on like the legacy of this like father and grandfather by being like the top student like by eventually like performing like the best and being like the number one in like everything every competition and everything in like overall and like eventually graduating as like the top 100 student of like never know like there are the lines of like the dream that like kind of kind of dream that like Edgar Allan Poe as well might have had quite joining from that. You know, might have been the case in the film support that mean but like the biggest shock to like Edgar Allan Poe might have been motivation because like from like the very first competition that might have competition or extent that might have happened in Latin America or like in that Edgar Allan Poe might have instantly shockingly realized that he had this like shocking formidable fight in like motivation who might have surpass like Edgar Allan Poe. Each and every single each of like competitions, each and every single time might have been like so Edgar Allan Poe like might have been coming second in like each and every single like in which like he will be for participating in like yet like in each and every single competition like teacher felt might be participating solely due to like that factor alone like Marisha definitely might have been way better at like performance at that performance in like all like competition and everything and might have consistently maintained that like number one spot and like that way the run for might have been so extremely straight up with like him always like maintaining like that number two spot and not being able to like attain like the number one spot. So like definitely this might have been inspired into like the fourth of which might have been one of like the most important competitions of for like might have been seen as one of like the most like important competition for like general book to carry on this like legacy. So definitely the run might have been absolutely desperate to like definitely uh to definitely win like the World Cup to surpass motivation definitely ensure the next win like the World Cup in that so definitely like and by then like have the run go and like we might not only fall in love by then might have been like the fever so or like might have been like in a relationship by then might have been like the case definitely on the so definitely the run go at that point might have not desperate and like he might have only decided to seek the help of that beams by definitely having might have seek for the help of wings and might have told wings to like definitely to definitely ensure to be like the co-pilot of like motivation in like of like of media or in like the book of and we might have signed being put like the task that like they can make that stealthy betrayal sunset stealthy betrayal on motivation and that way to like ensure that like motivation's team of like of media house in which like Vince as well was it the person that like a co-pilot like would be to ensure that like motivation's teams doesn't surpass like at the run both to be along the lines regarding along the lines like if the running might have assigned the task to like Vince might have that and might have been the case even so like Vince might have been so extremely obsessed and in love with like the running but like she might have not care if her team doesn't end up in like first place. So like luckily he might have acted accordingly and might have made all that multiple betrayal by against like Mauritian and like the team of like Ophelia Hall. But like yeah, like I'm during to that Mauritian that's been brilliant like I'm really so like to all the way to the end of like the both of like what is that might have not been able to like figure out about like all this like multiple betrayal attempt by teams to like have like Mauritian like things to like have ambitious team like end up in like behind like a double posting, which like the same time like this friend of like motivation who might be I know me like some might have some might not only that this, by the time like and even after like multiple secret attempts by teams like eventually and this friend that uh was like no me friend so the brain that Monica might have had. Like, she might have not been noticed. So like definitely I'm looking at she might have noticed or affect the circulation against that being come to do that such a betrayal might have been like the case limit. So like definitely Motisha winning like the focus might have been like the last for like Edgar and for as well as like teams from both that one might have been extremely jealous feeling jealous of like Motisha like at that point might have been when like they might have decided to maybe even like form this like super student society group of like when I chase it. Or like they might have been already members of like this like group of night shift. But like might be only at that point that they might have decided to like to put on that as take acting and basically invite Northeast to be a member of like the night shift. Might have been what might happen. So like not sure might have been who might have hopefully doing that might have been like the person of like actually being like the winner of like the fourth and taking like the Ophelia Hall to like such great place like and that at that point definitely Edgar Allan Poe with that absolute villainous in that along with that theme might have totally approached that Morticia and might have was like the author of that them wanted Morticia to totally join like the night shift might have been one of the weapons of new threat. Then this might be with that absolute villainous secret in that and planning by this might have been at that point might have been that way that by beings as well as like the for them to like skillfully commit all this like market crimes and basically eventually frame like motivate like the culture behind this crime and that way to like get motivation and that way to like take out the frustration by like getting motivation expelled from like another mode and basically maybe even put behind might be along the lines of like the extreme extend like the extreme jealousy of like queens as well as like there are both towards that motivation might have eventually turned out to left and soon to be taking decisions against left market. So that has discussed might have been like a case of limit right. So like and that way that Jap even according to the situation that we as well as like there have been post like invitations to have like notification join that the night takes which might have happened with tournament. So it might have been at least for them to like that way be able to like track all the exact mindset of like motivation like everything that like motivation plans on the each day so that like they might have that way through such access to such information through the fate acting while beings as well as like in the Rango might have been has to be put to be such has to be reference of that to get that information and to like commit the reference like accordingly to that way create like for specific create for the stack of for the like motivation and that way eventually print more feature as like the helper behind this print and to get more feature so that like at the running board for like graduate at the facility board of the person graduating as like the top alumni of like now might have been along the lines like at the running board and might have been something on the so like like while at the running board might have made like the offer an invitation to like like join like the night shift like at that point I'm definitely putting like even at that point I was also trying like just like no of the most might have had like two friends might have been like the it's might have one might have been just not me and like one might have been one's like might have been like the minute so like doing like in this at that point even though Motisha might have not been that excited to like join like her own mother as well as like this like not me friend but like Motisha might have been so excited and might have wanted to like join like the nation might have been like the name of the so yet like definitely at that point like Edgar Allan Poe only might have only decided to like have like our own not as well as like this not his friend of like Motisha to like join like the night shift. Like they might have wanted like not shadow to like join the night shift and like Motisha might have uh uh straight away realizing that like Motisha at that point like might have straight away projected their offer. So like that way, like might have been how like this like 20 microtransmission like that way like Edgar Allan Poe might have changed up his like man and uh might have at that point allowed like around like not after like not me front to like join like not sure because like when it have been afraid to like turn down which might have been like like that way like along with like Mopisha, like certainly around month as well as normal son of like what's the might have joined and might have been part of like the night shift that might have been against minimum recognition. So definitely Thomas in fact that might have been always like following Mopisha around and might have been like having this like not on like motivation might have been might have only physically expressed his love towards that not only to get reciprocated validated by motivation might have been like it's human surrender. Still Thomas might have not given up. Might have been like a situation with like might have been the case of human surrender. So definitely after like showing like the night shift like totally burning like slowly like the crimes might have started to like happen. Maybe in like the box close to like one by one through like the stealthy strategy and planning by exactly by scenes as well as like the general book. Might have been like the case certainly not very ambitious. So like so at that point of the different like things like crime case like which might have been unsolved like might have caught like your face of understand like Monica might have been sort of pretty badly wanting to like investigate and solve like this like unsolved multiple crime cases. So like at that point, like along with like more Asia, like owns mother as well as like um, this like totally friend might have them as like group might out of the kind of 2 to 3 hours and like never more to that forest location to like investigate. So like that level friends and like even though during like the investigation like they might have not been in like in sort of like sort or like bad deal as collecting who might have been like the culprit and basically even at that point like that kind might have kept on happening. It might have been like it is until eventually this like a specific not front like motivation eventually by herself like might have been like investigating that crime in like during her 3 hours at like never more and she might have maybe found something like a crucial evidence like connecting to either things or like at their own both or like both might have been like the case supplementary. So that at that point I would find like it's like normal friend might have been exchanged shortly might have had that realization that like so like at that point, I got the restoration like the breath that like this learning and might have found might have been such that might have highly like made it that feel highly likely and so like has a culprit being that we as well as like the relevant go, but also like the from that evidence like the normal friend might have also been able to like connect like the law with like suspicions that she might have had connected to like the end up having for it like being just like set the attempts of like betrayal against like Mokita to purposely have that Mokita's like Mokita's think those like back then what might have light as like a like suspicion the thing is like normally friend like at that point like on finding this like question evidence it might have all connected and how like have been loves that Edgar go so much and are in like a relationship with that Edgar go and how that more interesting like joining like never more have all those like stuff that like Edgar go in the channel single competition and perform better than Edgar go and everything. Definitely like all the dots might have connected, shockingly connected to that is not different of that more share. And that way that definitely before even revealing it to like notification that is not different of that notification might have been searched to name race at like beings as well as like at like as well as like the running board that like she might have first like confirmed who is as well as like the running board and might have only like went out and then and might have made that absolute threat against like teams as well as like at the running board about like definitely her definitely deciding to like definitely reveal all this truth to like what happened like before but why she might have been also revealed to like reveal this like social truth to like Motisha about like the villains of like Edgar Allan and means that it might have been more sort of way than like including like the next crime that might have been committed and like the victim ending up being that exact normal friend of like Motisha. And that way, like the villains of like Queens as well as Edgar Allan Poe usually might have ended up with like them taking off like that enormous front of like monsters that might have been like the thing, which might have been such an absolute extreme shock for like Motisha as well as like around number might have been like a case which might have resulted in like them both like so the through that absolute shock like them both like who might have had like what they might who might have had like enormous like fond memories as part of like the night shift like along with like um that like not different like I'm different definitely they might have like definitely after like the sort of of like that not different like them definitely not what not as well as like mother might have not been able to like bring themselves to like once again continue being part of the explanation. That way like them for like motivation as well as like one's mother might have Twitter, like the night shift might have been what might have happened. And definitely that way, like, and since at that point, like, the entire report, like, as well as beings, like, for target, and like, might have been definitely more efficient, like, they might have been heavily using, like, the system of, like, the night shifts to, like, target and for referring to the against, like, maybe against, like, more efficient. So, like, once, like, more efficient, as well as, like, going from the might have, with, like, the night shifts, like, at that point, like, it's relevant for as well as, like, um, being might have felt at with them having absolutely no need to, like, be part of, like, the night shift anymore. Then definitely understand that them as well might have decided to, like, leave the night shift, and, like, at that point only very few members might have only remained in, like, the night shift. So, like, at least in, like, back then, like, it might have been the run go back might have been, like, just, like, president or, like, leader of, like, this, like, night shift group, like, that was, like, the run go leaving, like, the night shift, like, that way that the night shift made over the standard with, like, the loss of, like, uh, soon after, like, the loss of, like, with, like, enormous friends of, like, no future might have been what might have happened in, like, the past 30 years back to, like, the past might have been, like, a very that we might be very connection right now. Okay, so what you went through an right now, definitely go like the entire right now between the saying that, like, the open day night shift that would be most likely the entire would be able to, like, convince, like, the percentage the end that the remaining percentage night shift to uh, even though Bianca would be, might be not expecting, like, save to see to that Bianca still Bianca might be right now might be really expecting to be able to, like, convince and influence and, like, to be able to, like, get the majority to, like, that percentage night shift to, like, come to the decision to get Wednesday expelled from, like, never know might be along the lines, like, Bianca would be really hoping for, like, Wednesday's, like, Wednesday's act of, like, entering the secret library would be along the lines, like, Bianca would be a person would be only expecting, but, like, instead, like, like, scenario to be, like, a savior, like, and I'm thinking, like, Bianca attempting on that and kind of, like, getting, like, the majority initially to, like, decide to, like, expel get Wednesday expel. But, like, I'm putting, at that point, like, savior, like, in the savior single-handedly totally, like, influencing, like, the remaining members back and basically into that basically them all like, the majority finally ending up taking the solely like saviors influence, like, the majority eventually ending up taking the decision to like, add Wednesday as well as, like, the newest member to, like, the present day night shift group. It's, like, into scenario that I'm showing, and, like, about which, like, can get that one will be extremely frustrated. It's definitely not current. Definitely with, like, Wednesday favor, like, having the, like, showing interest towards, like, Wednesday as well as, like, with, like, the recent defeat of, like, Bianca to Wednesday in, like, the poker and everything. So definitely Bianca for the second would be definitely also think to, like, serious, like, decision to, like, convert this decision to, like, add Wednesday to, like, the night shift group. So, like, the scenario that I'm that, like, I'm like, Bianca would be showing her objection by most likely herself, like, solely Bianca exiting from, like, the next year, which is, like, the banana that that would be how, like, Bianca would be rebelling against, like, the majority position, like, the scenario that I'm remembering, and that would be and and at that point, said, like, the moment Bianca would be taking that decision, exit from the next shift group, like, Wednesday would be entering, like, the next shift group, and, like, at that point, said, like, Bianca would have fixed in her mind to, like, definitely, like, from that point on to, like, definitely target, like, Wednesday to the maximum and ensure that, like, to somehow falsely frame Wednesday somehow and basically to probably somehow influence, like, Queens as well to probably get Queens to, like, totally expel Wednesday as soon as possible to any means as soon as possible from, like, Nevermore. Uh, this would be what, like, being cap will be from this point on will be authentic and, like, focusing on, like, the scenario that I'm in. So, like, I'm doing first being cap will be most likely meeting beams and, like, totally the thereafter step will be trying to, like, get beams to be trying to, like, influence beams to, like, somehow get Wednesday expelled, but, like, luckily I'm still fundamental prevention certainly usually having this, like, huge long term, like, major plan like, stacked up already in her mind against, like, not just Wednesday but also against, like, Kentucky at the time when we do, like, put, like, the entire to have, like, Kentucky like that when we get mostly framed and accused, and basically that way to like eventually it all like parallel into like eventually like and like the Adams family, and Wednesday and Motisha getting put behind bar, and almost all of them like is getting eventually getting put behind bar. Like this will be that long term plan, which like most likely uh, is like most likely Queens as well as like secretly Edgar Island Pope might be currently having as like person as like one of like ultimate goals uh, uh, or like have the ultimate goal in that like might be like the case that we don't even because like definitely that favor for translate like of like let's get from like the past or like maybe multiple cases associated with that case maybe definitely having like wins as well as like in the Ellen who doesn't have like the whole image of like basically Queens being the principal of like the series like Nevermore as well as like Edgar Allan Poe like who's like whole related and we should be most likely to remember is Edgar Allan Poe like on top of that being like the top alumni of like Nevermore out of that, like Edgar Allan might be like some celebrity, like kind of like figure, extremely popular figure in front of the world, and might be considering the French might be like an extremely popular, and experts might be like the being like all that image of like and life of that leaves as well as like Edgar Allan Poe, like the fusion powers that like Morticia and now Wednesday also possess like basically might have like the potential to like basically like that fusion powers might have created that atmosphere within like Edgar Allan Poe as well as like these due to like basically the crimes that they might have that they committed in like the past like basically that group due to body to get the fusion powers of like Morticia and they usually comes to like surface and like forward points out about it and like things as well as like Edgar Allan Poe might be having that atmosphere that can like would be also definitely due to this reason like American like we might have this like long term realistic plan for like Wednesday to hopefully stack up a lot of evidence against like Wednesday and Murphy and Gomez and like then that reflect that on family and to like totally silent them by putting them on behind bar might be along the lines on the like maybe like and when they're on the lines like things might have this plan. So luckily I'm looking like without great delay like I'm looking like on demand information like Jianka right now that without great delay quitting from like the night shades and basically Wednesday joining like the night shades and Bianca straight away trying to influence and get things to like expel Wednesday from like Nevermore. But like that attempt of like Bianca seriously backfiring on like uh, just like the scenario that I'm looking at money and Vince straight away abusing like being tough letter like like the scenario that I'm looking for and yet like the end of still and even at that point like even though the entire would be extremely frustrated and impatient and like disappointed like still the entire would be roughly still won't be willing at all to like give up and basically Bianca would have fixed her mind at that point to like definitely to definitely get rid of like Wednesday through any means will be along the line like Bianca would have at that point like fixed in her mind if like it was selecting this after that I'm going to bring and another range. So at that point, like I'm talking like the entire that point will be having like that actually extreme fear of like more than anything like of like the possibility of like savior when savior falling in love with like Wednesday. It's like the that may be like the same last thing that like the end was born. So like usually this might be that extreme fear that the end that going to be having and like really with to totally avoid such a possibility that the end so if it's something of mind like that me that's one of the like internet of right first get from that no it's like the knowledge that I'm going to bring in of like the night shift would be totally helpful would be along the lines like Wednesday will be totally feeling so like I think we that even though Wednesday will be having that will no with no interest at all in like joining like team park and spending time with like group night shifts like still I'm looking for like Wednesday totally seeing that as like an opportunity like totally take advantage of for like Wednesday to like get to her goal faster. Might be along the lines of like an angel scenario that I'm in that way like I'm forwarded to all the factor alone like I'm remembering like Wednesday only agreeing to like Savior and like only that way joining like the next like in scenario that I'm remembering. Sana കൊടുക്കുന്ന ടെൻഷൻ പോക്കറ്റിംഗ് space green to like join then I check so if you like when say most likely see like joining that then I check that like if he has like an opportunity for like when space to like get like more of like an access to never more like secrets and mysteries and basically hence like that sort that like when space will be able to have it might definitely be to definitely to like solve that favorite unsolved crime case of like Wednesday to like in like Wednesday path to like reaching that ultimate goal like basically uh, like basically so like basically being a member of okay so like being a preemption right now was at least of like solely including like savior like the remaining entirety of like the members of like the night is definitely from good point on like targeting Wednesday so like to get to totally uh, punish Wednesday and maybe like before having Wednesday get expelled. With like in the scenario that I was totally doing like Wednesday's current act of like inserting like the night shade and like and delivering like them without misreading at all like she and upset like only using that as like an opportunity to get all of like the night shades members to like the target set up and say like ultimate target and should bring up. It's like the scenario that I'm thinking well they would be attempting that and that like and delivering like say that totally objecting to that and you'll be say trying to like justify Wednesday it's like the scenario that I'm looking for. So like that way like I'm bring like to that like interruption of like say where I'm bring like the remaining members of the night says like going silent. Yet like I'm bring like one like saver will be once like the meeting of the night says will be over and saver will be leaving like uh, remembering scenario of like say the being like the first to like leave after like the meeting the night shift. And at that point like BN Cup definitely stopping that all the remaining night shift members and basically BN Cup of getting the influence in them and getting them to like totally like creating that personally creating that like race with confuse of like the night shift members by reminding them how much like Wednesday had like influenced like the night shifts and basically that way Bianca influenced them and getting them to like totally set up like basically getting rid of Wednesday as like their ultimate target. That way it's like taking in scenario that I'm looking over sorry. That way like the night shift like that way gently attempting to like target Wednesday without like Saber finding out about it. It's that giving it scenario that I'm looking over bringing out again. Okay, so like you know, preemption right now is that like Wednesday into the person might be having absolutely no idea at all that like the actual condiment going back to the situation might feel that might have really say the except that might have been like the exact monster that at that point might be like that just into space you know preemption so it might be those serious tectonic powers to that one to that kind of stuff it's like they might have stuff you know things so like Wednesday into the person might be totally of what like they have like successful that like that we might not see say that even though say that part of that night says it might have definitely been like someone from like the group of like night shade that we might not be Saber that might have like been that monster that have attacked about at the end of the line like when staying into the person might be of like the function of Stephanie and creation. So like the Cleveland Jackson right now that like Sager might have not at all attempted to like take out Owens, but like Sager might have only intended for like a warning to like totally scare Owens and maybe to have like especially with like Owens like totally attempting to like take out like Wednesday twice like with like the government schedule of the so even that as well like Sager might have definitely been able to like easily might have been able to like figure out that like it might have definitely been like Rowan's like doing that like cigar food that instead that way. Uh, might have been like you know this is like I think like right before like it might have been right before that garbage like incident that like the whole quarrel between like Rowan and like Savior might have happened where like the quarrel might have been definitely about like Rowan claiming that like Savior that like about that like Wednesday if that girl from like the drawing basically would be delivering about like the of like no and basically Rowan not like maybe even wanting Savior to let team up with like Rowan and take out Wednesday might be along the lines like Rowan might have wanted out of like that help from like Savior so like the conversation like might have been like the point where like Savior might have instantly felt that Rowan was like probably crazy for even desiring that so definitely that might have been how like what might have happened that way like even like the and like it might have been so after that, for that, like the Darwin incident might have happened. So like, and that when the Savior might have figured that it might have definitely been around that. And like definitely so like once like after that like in that the like night of the scale once like Rowan was like attacking once they to create that to give that warning to like Rowan and to yeah Rowan like might have been like the only intent of like Sega behind that attack of like Sega on Rowan, which might have been what might have happened, right? So that monster might have been Sega and this week might have been a warning at them at all might Sega at like Rowan. So like Rowan might have definitely so Sega might have ensured to like uh to that not take out phone at that point. Back then might have been like a technical operation. And Wednesday might have straight away seeing that phone's like injuries like Rowan might have been extremely exhausted from like the injuries that like Rowan might have not been able to like scream or like even move at all. Might have been like the situation of like Rowan back then might have been what might have actually happened is like about to that ability and like Wednesday might have assumed that basically like that monster took out like about before anyone even making it to like the crime scene, like and like might have been at that point from there. That actress just might have showed up to like the crime scene, might have been the case of the mentorship and like on seeing like Rowan like suddenly and like at that point like Rowan might have been alive, might have been like in the mentorship and seeing like the injury like and something like which might have been easily able to figure out that maybe that it might have been the police failure that and like attack like Rowan just by seeing like the interrupt might have been like today's because like beings might be like tendency to my presentation that like Sega's inactivity might be like being sunk and like any similar might be beings like inactivity might be being might be like that type of situation about which like Sega as well as like any similar might be totally unaware of. It's definitely one of the presentation. So definitely like beings might be well fully aware of like the in singular like not being able to like uh, transform into like a wearable as well as like they were like having like the power to like transform into like systematic moves platform as well. Might be one thing that like Link might be totally aware of as well. Might be like actuated with the definitely going to get it. So like definitely by seeing the injury itself like on then like Link might have straight away being able to like realize that like it was like the actual like Sega. So like the implementation maybe because of like Sega most likely be like being on some like condition like it might have wanted to like say Sega as well as like being but the last thing is might have wanted might have been to like for like the sheriff to like probably think if like the sheriff finds like wrong like for like the sheriff on like setting like injury to like maybe after like the after like the analysis and everything to like come to like the conclusion of like basically that like there are two modes of like due to like the injury like the that pattern might have been different for like series of attack when compared to like means attack on the three victims in like the Kaufman school lab now. So like basically for like the sheriff school lab comes to such a conclusion as for like the concept like there are being 2 months of like might be like the last thing they want were like things what she might have actually wanted might have been for like the sheriff to like follow like this like whole investigation to like find this monster and eventually for like the sheriff to like come down to like to be getting into like getting this sheriff come down to the conclusion that like this like monster just like Wednesday might be exactly what like means usually what I might be attending by stacking up evidence even through symbol as well like means might be actively trying to like usually get the whole situation into that point. Might be like that the situation level change. So definitely what means might have done at that point might have been like either means might have uh taken out like forward at that point might have been two and might have even like might be like the case like one possible that right? Or like we might have quickly concentrate of like evidence, but like Rowan might have been so bad injured that like Rowan might have not even been able to like make any noise at all. Like James might have quickly abducted Rowan and might have hit Rowan somewhere in some building which might exist like see within like some sort like surrounding never know. But like we had like instantly far away distance. So like that way, that means maybe success yesterday or like through like content or symbol like yesterday might be taking care of that the surrounding around the that itself might be the case that mean of trend and like during this like sorry talk like around like these might already probably by now we might have managed to that thoroughly manipulate around and that we might have easily been able to like, figure out how upon like ultimate target is like to and goal is to like bring down Wednesday. So like Vince by now might have totally managed to like get Rowan to totally listen to like everything Vince say, and Vince might have given Rowan during the treatment of like step treatment of Rowan, that Vince might have already given that absolute assurance to like Rowan that own road to that from government space like that same road or that same as well. And like we might have maybe made up some sort of like a fake life of like a story, maybe connecting to that the space no longer like what Isha having like electricity like having like done something villainous and destroyed like the life of these on the lines of the like these might said like on top of like a fake backstory and to that make Wednesday as well as like Notice as well as the entire Captain Adam family with like extremely villainous in front of like and so and that way might have targeted them and manipulated on into like probably having on listen to like everything we say so like that way we might have done that assurance to like around in that point as well that is that like around goal is like the same goal that is like lead so like what lead for like going to like a player and let team handle it on and basically like that thing won't rest until like the destruction of like not only Wednesday but like when the family is like ensure we be along the line and bring like things might have given that from insurance to like point which might have already maybe come down from and like that way like point might be at person like some at like some location like basically still be getting treatment according to like in orders and basically looking according to like in orders and basically still in hiding might be like that situation is like for the hospitality. So that definitely has to be reminded members from that like about the stuff like another more might definitely be that absolute sort of battle between like Wednesday and Wednesday and Poe. Eventually like there's going to with like a scenario where like the Alan Poe would be returning back to like no and since when you get putting the one in the like the Alan Poe might be like a celebrity level exceptionally popular like exhaust might be like it is certainly the reaction. So definitely like and with like Exos would be going to be showing up to like more in like in the future. And by then like I'm like through being like circuitry being and along with siblings like involved as well as like nothing might be naturally being so like with their collective realistic effort like they might have by then might have framed Wednesday into like this like absolute demon into like having like tentative people of Jericho being scared of like Wednesday as well as like the students of Never Russia being scared of Wednesday. And for Wednesday, a demon, and basically like them all like the students of like Never like leaving Never due to their fear towards like Wednesday. As well as like the people of like Jericho as well, like basically living in that absolute fear of like this demon monster. Uh, Wednesday would be like that image or image that like being through games like millions of and recurring like games might have by then managed to like end up with that end up giving Wednesday like the scenario that I'm going to so definitely so at that point like the dragon go like showing up to save Jericho and like Nevermore have like this like have to save the exorcist that so only bring like the dragon go to be showing up to like Nevermore and like that way like the final showdown battle between like the Jericho and Wednesday has in like and Nevermore. So definitely like I prefer like the in the drawing like we see that the person that in the drawing that like Wednesday at present called the pilgrim might in actuality be like Edgar and Poe in that future. Uh, like about which like Wednesday at present definitely would be totally unaware of. Might be like actually definitely probably there and thinking about it. Yes, I like definitely my very interesting right now. It's definitely the like what should be most likely Edgar Allan Poe's like statue might be like the new statue that's like right now at like the town square and like might be and like the town square like Jericho might be like the case that we mentioned. This might be all building this like new statue of that Edgar Allan Poe or the mentioned will be all part of that James like plan to like eventually have like once like the people of like the citizens of like Jericho like totally to clear this like most demon Wednesday and at that point like them or like to like notice like to always like look up to this like statue and like remember that Edgar Allan Poe, and basically to see him as that absolute hero savior that would uh, for them to want to fall out to and get and bring Edgar Allan Poe to save Jericho from the monstrous demon like from the monstrous demon Wednesday, and that way to have eventually have use and that way eventually throw Edgar Allan Poe to get rid of Wednesday and the Adams family through Wednesday that way most likely to capture Wednesday and basically to bring Wednesday um, behind some put Wednesday behind bars and that way through Wednesday to also get the in that effect that family behind will be to even this new statue at town square at Jericho might be the beginning stages of basically just long term inner figure of Danes and current goal might be activity remembering. Also the human potential by the especially for there to be a specific conditions of all this performance from the front during the dedication of this new statue memorial statue. This might be of connected current goal. So the conditions of for the performance of each of them sports might be for the performance to be the main focus and highlight of their performance that needs to be that has both traits of Edgar and Poe. It's the scenario that I'm doing. That way I'm definitely and I'm totally looking for to be rather than group performance on the different for to be more individual performance of what the scenario that I can. That way once it would be turned for and I'm totally bring scenario to be uh, like the last in line to perform could eventually totally be Wednesday. And I'm going to bring until Wednesday's performance, everybody else will be performing will be following the condition and will be performing accordingly while praising enter and go. Also to such great extent in front of performance as well as performing in front of stadium enter and go in the scenario that I'm doing until finally it will be Wednesday's turn and at that point in Wednesday's performance under the Wednesday doing the exact opposite sort of opposite and they'll be totally falling out Wednesday's saying Wednesday's point of view as for how uh she used to Edgar Allan Poe at one point in the past, but like Wednesday saying things along the lines of Edgar Allan Poe has partly fallen off the recent years will be along the lines of the and Wednesday would be detailing out about that area about that topic is range of scenario that I was thinking, which at that point that would be easily triggering and frustrating all the citizens that would have gathered to in front of that statue to totally defeat all this performance. And this might be one thing that teams could by now might have totally figured out the kind of character Wednesday is and basically being so peacefully totally expecting for Wednesday to do something exactly that and basically talk against that character and who might be such an extremely popular and loved celebrity might be that person might be his definitely one thing. So that way through Wednesday to that way through Wednesday performance straight away like Wednesday performance to anger instantly anger the citizens of Jericho who are gathered there and for all of their attention to straight away attention focus to straight away for on Wednesday as just define individual student from Nevermore. Basically for basically instantly for the people of Jericho to have this intent get as well as this focus to for inform get formed towards Wednesday. Yeah. Would be along the lines things might be planning it for these performance might be or students might be activated to this meeting. Feel they will be scenario of and so definitely now mission right now is definitely for the scenario to be Wednesday showing some rebellion most likely through not just playing tough solo at town square during the marching band and the Wednesday so Wednesday not only playing tough solo but Wednesday singing as well along with it and I'm the song all those marching back according to the march back and everything would be totally to praise uh Edgar Allan Poe and that statue as well thinking of that is this makes statue as well that thinking of that of that Edgar Allan Poe that it finds the thing of right. So definitely even though we told Wednesday to like only play solo like Wednesday, showing her rebellion against like Edgar Allan Poe and disagreement against like Edgar Allan Poe, against like finding Edgar Allan Poe great by like most likely singing while playing cello. And like also my solution at that point that some lyrics all being compared to like how she would you know how she totally finds like Edgar Allan Poe not all that great at all would be like the case so like her singing against like Edgar Allan Poe is like the scenario and Wednesday that way being like the center of attention of like the entirety of like by the his crowd that will be showing up at like high school and there's like children's scenario that I'm going to okay, so like most of the film that like Wednesday might have been like the sole topic behind like the reason for like the whole war and fight between like Owen and Savior might be like activity to just supplement the so like Savior at present might be totally dying about like the war between like Owen and Savior being about like the that Owen so I see you do like about that pairing that phase from like the book in like that picture library and actually that might be such an absolute like that like Savior might be like telling to like probably hide like the group that will prevent like the possibility of that basically uh because like Fever may have that fear that basically if like Wednesday finds out that basically that Silver and Cole has fought like the reason therefore was like concerning like topic of like Wednesday like when the positive like Wednesday that they come to like the conclusion that basically that like Saber might be so that most of that may have taken out like Owen while Owen was left against Ray, like when Sailor might be having that fear of left against Ray, finding out such a truth. Uh, might be like actual situation, like when Spray figuring out that truth, like might be like that absolute fear that like, Sailor will be having. So that to hide such, to prevent such a scenario, like Sailor had proclaimed only like might be like that type of situation. Like Sailor might absolutely not care about like basically about the act of like Owen tearing a page from the SecretLibrary and like that situation but made television. JosephCrackstone might have been an extremely popular episode back in like recent past while he was alive might be like that the situation and like the present day descendant of that Joseph Crackstone might be Edgar Allan Poe. So like about to that and the thing like so definitely Edgar Allan Poe and his like father and his like grandfather like all might have been looked up to like looked up to like Joseph Crackstone as like that as this hero might be like the implementation and like it might have been like Edgar Allan Poe alone that might have taken that for inspiration like might have gotten inspired by like the great number of like stories just like Edgar Allan Poe's like father might have told him since he had like about like all the heroic acts of like Joseph Crackstone that like this might have inspired like Edgar Allan Poe to take up like the very same path of like Joseph Crackstone to like probably be exactly like him or like on like Edgar Allan Poe grows up or to eventually even surpass like the great hero Joseph Crackstone might have been along the lines of like that ultimate goal which might have been concept in like Edgar Allan Poe yes might have been like the minimum character so definitely like graduating from that Nevermore as like the top alumni might have been like a crucial and just to be like the story factor like which like Edgar Allan Poe back then as like a student that like Nevermore might have seen as like definitely along his like path of like eventually making it to that point of like surpassing like Joseph Crackstone might have been like the case definitely so like exactly like Joseph Crackstone like and so like at present like the situation of like Edgar Allan Poe might be like his too might have followed those footsteps and might be at present might be in like an extremely popular exorcist. So like definitely might look for the next in like the drawing of like around mother like it might definitely be about like the distant future where like about like by shown on fight between like Wednesday and Edgar Allan Poe. Who due to this like extreme inspiration towards like uh, Joseph Crackstone might have lack of me while like doing this like so and everything like he will be like that always like going walking around with like the very same exact get up that like back then Joseph Crackstone had like the like exact like outfit and everything just like mannerisms and everything like I'm referring to that extreme obsessive inspiration like which like a current book might have had towards like those Crackstone like he might be exactly like imitating like it might have ended up to the point of like exactly at the trying to like imitate Joseph Crackstone. Some of stories and everything that he might have done information might be the reason for like favor straight away on at present like on seeing like the drawing of that on like mother that basically straight away assuming that like the printer in like the drawing as like so Russian when in actuality that it might be like in the distant future at just Alan Ford in that which might have been drawn in that drawing might be like the actuality of that the situation might be that is like the human brains and sort of like the same like so Blackstone naturally possibly maybe even being like an extremely realistic character as well. What which like the first like the word even to the person might be going down aware of the human brain. So like Joseph Blackstone might be viewed as like absolute legendary like most popular figure back during his time. Might have been how he might have his electricity might be viewed as like engraved by like the people of like the world. And person might be like that definitely my friend. When in actuality like like the long line of like ancestors of like Wednesday and Morticia might that road might go all the way up to exactly the location of like Nevermore as well as like Jericho as well as like um, there might be a door which there might exist like a connection between like JosephCrackstone as well as like the long distance and the stuff of like Wednesday as well as Morpheus might have been like a day but you know the fact that might have been friends were like the were like the ancestor of like Wednesday might have been genuine about like this like friendship toward like those spectrum, but like I'm like eventually that and like the ancestor of the constant might have been like extremely wealthy because that might have been like a case and like might have been a genuine gap and everything might have been like a case limitation. But like that might have not been like the case with like Joseph Crackstone and like, eventually I'm like Joseph Crackstone might have eventually tricked and manipulated and betrayed like the friendship the genuine friendship of like the ancestor of the constant Morticia and might have like that they might have stolen his like wealth and it might be with that stolen quest that is the lecture of Christ might have found out Jericho might be like the activity of like what might have happened in like that long distance. So like about the picture and the right. So like definitely that's the then like eventually once that like showdown fight around that time while that showdown fight between like Wednesday and like that person who really from the drawing show like the right from figure not like will be like this in the current have become big and the island for like once like that fight will be over like and like the truth what they been getting revealing or like saying that they have like the word about like the truth history of like Jericho. That basically like it might have been maybe like Wednesday's like and Mauritius like loans and that might have had like that might have came up with like the idea to like found to like be the founder and basically to like create like Jericho and create this town and call it Jericho and everything. Like definitely like for the idea might have been it might have been like the situation like Japan and like and definitely like on realizing on hearing about all this idea like and like putting on that absolute fake acting like and considering that the production might have eventually steadily ended up taking out and basically stealing his like wealth and basically like applying his like ideas and like taking claim and like pretending to be like Joseph Crackstone idea and like that way might have been out like Joseph Crackstone might have ended up becoming this like series found of like Jericho might have been what might have happened to simply on the sort of like the entirety of like the world like finding out about this like absolute social so my preference might be the case. So like in like the distance in like the distances of upper back forward and back getting like Wednesday and like Edgar and both left then that like the world finding out truth and basically that way at that point like basically Waves and Edgar Allan Poe like all of their attempts to like destroy like the Adams family ending up with like the Adams family like being so extremely popular and basically like the in a good way and basically like in that way of like the world being so fond of like the Adams family and everything might be like totally looking up to like the Adams family and like that ancient ancestor of like Wednesday and Morticia like given to scenario that I'm looking for and my secondary ambition. So like definitely my secondary ambition for like in like the meeting house like at program like indoor living from there should be like the hat and like the coat as well as like all sorts of things that like JosephCrackstone might have been said to have used in while he was alive, and the highlight of the things that would be present in the meeting house would be that the specific item. This undoubtedly would be most likely the staff of that JosephCrackstone, which might be the exact staff on the domain. It's scenario variable, and so that staff might be all sorts of stories about stories and claims about the existing all sorts of mysterious power contained within that staff, which JosephCrackstone alone had access to, and using the which he had basically called down all sorts of demons and monsters to be along the lines of it needs the whole phrase history connected to JosephCrackstone might be present, which might be naturally or false. Uh, so it might be actually the situation. Okay, so that's definitely not the intention right now just for Wednesday without day delay. So you even without permission, still not getting up and sneaking in with that quick step into the meeting house so practical and they are I'm in that Wednesday most likely finding one of the artifacts which would be most likely when they able to feeling us to end up focusing on seeing that aspect and focusing Wednesday managing to remove the glass ceiling somehow and basically so that that's itself and managing to touch that artifact and that instantly being the point where Wednesday would most likely having her next vision and that vision probably would be connected to your Crackstone Crackstone's that he was alive and basically that vision I'm preparing without mystery leading Wednesday towards to Crackstone crypt which Wednesday had seen during the folk of boat race that way Wednesday eventually ending up in the middle of the night basically sneaking out of Wednesday Dortmund and Dortmund and basically simply making it to the Crackstone crypt and basically Wednesday somehow managing to integrate into and share Wednesday getting the next vision and as well as some sort of specific item which might be sealed within that crypt. Definitely through which Wednesday will be gaining the next and that through that item Wednesday will be getting most likely the next vision. And basically that you will getting way more information to Wednesday to as per to where exactly to head Wednesday's in which direction to head Wednesday investigation to unsolve always inspiration comes to your moment. Wednesday was getting a huge lead while inspecting the citizen inspecting the picture those on Crackstone is things of scenario that I'm with okay, so definitely my tutorial right now is for the repeated reunion of Wednesday with the kid from the behavior class and bring that continuing on into the future as well. It's the scenario that I'm exploring and they are exploring as for Ajax I'm definitely putting eventually compared to bring the future Ajax as well getting for in some sort of in the middle of some sort of a previous situation, critical situation uh Rowan's case in the future and they are exploring exactly how Rowan went missing. Ajax as well completely going missing literally in uh the future you can ask that opportunity and definitely I'm bring the repeated reunion between Wednesday and the kid from the Indian club as well as as well as anything as well totally happening the kid from the Kelly Health Club is reunion with anything as well happening even after that that is going definitely after as Ajax will be going missing again anything that will be extremely sad and would be trying. And at that point, I'm also trying for the kid from the high class doing that look just to totally comfort and cheer up to totally comfort and cheer up anything and that's all. And that way the friendship an actual friendship being eventually formed between the kid from the high class and anything which eventually will be reflecting in an eventual system to the scenario where I'm putting the shocking revelation of that situation happening where I'm putting definitely Ajax not survive to the pizza. It's after going missing I'm Ajax will be definitely not surviving the scenario that I'm definitely and by the time like anything class will be finding out about this, like I'm saying that the bond of friendship between like the kid from like the media club and like uh, and like anything like or the year they both will be growing up like will be ending up into like them being in a relationship in like the single like in the scenario that I'm looking over something and my consider so like that way like that 0.01% that I think that Wednesday had in like the beginning told to like the kid from like the behavior that lack of like him totally getting uh, and similar to like Paul Torrance, like actually becoming that point that like minuscule of like a percentage that he was like totally hopeful about like everything like actually totally working out for him and is making like that way like the same result like I just like him and any similar like ending up in like a relationship of like in our that I'm all like kind of friend. Sure, so like definitely my friend and then putting on definitely that like so like don't to like definitely not at all be related to like the normie who's like passing resulting like the standing of like night shift happened 30 years back. It's definitely my friends. Like there will be absolutely no connection, no any relation at all between like don't hit and that normie. It's definitely my friendship. But like I'm looking like don't hit not like we maybe using that as like a strategy, like such a claim that don't help activity that lead might activity inactivity might be definitely not solved and normally be not solved and normally might be like activity to is definitely not correct. So get like something might be pretending to be a normie solely to and to be just related to like convince and uh like saying that she's like a normie from a black Wednesday like about celebrity or that might be her respect and then to like convince like Wednesday that like she is like a normie and basically that way to like gain Wednesday trust and basically to have that Wednesday uh, open up to content and basically for content to that way get for like the secret of like Wednesday and basically to totally that way help and that way to like along with like the teamwork with like teamboard as well as like team to like really delivering down Wednesday might be definitely like content plan and definitely might be as part of like brainstorm plan that like basically the whole normally claimed by content might be happening. This definitely my good impression. So definitely like eventually I'm preparing like content totally with that approach still like making it seem natural in a way as if like to make it seem natural like I'm preparing like content like eventually ending up like totally making this like absolute really kind of like, creating this good situation so for like content to like make this like claim of like this like a revelation in front of like this that like don't is like related to that Norway who past like 30 years that and like was like the night shift to like get this brand and like basically like that as well I'm just suffering like as like a strategy that has just like don't is using initially to like gain the trust and sympathy of like Wednesday to doing the later Wednesday like in the scenario that I'm doing. And then speaking about the generation that like don't help naturally, it's like Kimbot might be like the sibling of like these and definitely I'm speaking about the generation that like don't help might actually be a blonde and basically like the red hair that like don't help has like at present might be totally okay. Especially my generation that is sitting on it. Okay, so let's think about when someone bring that content to that maybe that like about that the sibling of that fields. Things like that, my for example, bringing up the mayor was up might have definitely in actuality might have definitely seen content even way before like him right now and like meeting content might be like that to the remember anything, but like him not being able to that precisely pinpoint it might be definitely due to like the last time we might have seen content like content might have been blonde hair, might have been like the days like without like the wig, might be how uh, like might be how like the mayor Walker might have seen like something like the last night. Definitely remember it. So definitely it might have been made back when like Thornhill might have been along with like being as well as like Kimball like song self then like then might have been like a student of like they might have all been like students like at like now together 30th like supplement preparation. Maybe it might have been at that point in that system path that like Mayor Walker might have seen Thornhill might be also the case supplement and like it might have been involving some specific incident connecting to like content that like is the that might be the reason for like maybe even after 30 years like I couldn't remember the invention like never work after like remembering content even though like and this might be like the reason as well like that incident that will might have resulted in like dreams like having to being forced to like hide content as well might have been like the case definitely and that way like eventually dreams might have after 30 years like dreams might have that have put brought back content with like the red hair switch as the like normally teacher, which is new identity, fake identity of this like normally teacher, new normally teacher of like never might be like the actuality of like the situations like how to be there and and also the name of the repressions are lessons like the revelation of like may have was of being like studies and like certainly predicting so it might have been when he might have been like there's in past like when he might have been working in like the department like has part of like some case that he might have definitely ran into and might have seen that content for spending it. Like and back then like content might have been flown. Definitely my mother ambition. So definitely like this might be the reason for like him at present like feeling as if like he has seen like content before. Definitely might have been. So like definitely I continue information from like it might have been like may have walked up that like content might have been staring and not being at like the restaurant because like content might have had that absolute fear within her of like the possibility of that maybe that even with like the guys like walk up like totally recognizing content might be like the case definitely not great and like it might have been like content totally testing to see if exactly like how content might have tricked everybody else that like Jericho from not figuring out like content like identity is like uh to like totally ensure that basically like worker as well is not able to like recognize content might be along the lines like and not might have wanted to sector worker. And this might be the reason for like content like staring. Okay, so like consumer term of that what might have happened in that the 16th might have been that the Crackstone most likely making that absolute betrayal on his that on that the individual who might have seen that Joseph Crackstone as like absolute friend and that individual might be that the long distance ancestor of that money of like the Adams family of like Mortgage and Gunstein might be like the case that no so definitely that he might have also be betrayed him and that might have stubbornly taken him out and might have framed it into like an attack by like the his like wife and daughter who were like caused by demons will be along the lines of the different Joseph Crackstone after his after taking out after his like criminal act might have changed itself and falsely framed like the mother and daughter like basically as being culprit behind like the passing of the ancient ancestor of like consent or so might have been like the case the minimum dreams and that way we might have gotten like all the civilians that then to like believe it and might have totally in the name of exorcism like he might have totally like taken out like the mother and stop and that way he might have after doing that like he might have stolen like the extreme family watcher might be like the case and like that way like that as then like John Frankston might have attained all the wealth and like then that might be how like he might have founded Jericho and even that as well might have been like the original idea of which might have belonged to found Jericho might have been the original idea which might have been uh, like the ancient ancestor of like instant the future things all the idea like an open the personal might have stolen that as well might have been after destroying like Benda family might have been like the extreme realistic things that like the character might have done which might be like not a single scene of like that incident where like the Crackstone might have probably framed like the mother and daughter as like having been by demon might be what might be in front of the public might be what might have been might be inactivity depicted through that painting which might be what when the right now when the person will be most likely like seeing as like this like great painting of like Joseph Crackstone on the day like the meeting house of like Joseph Crackstone might be like the activity of like the story behind the painting is definitely not frame. So here, so like you might was there in the things that in like 1500s, like the public might have been viewing that as a fraction back then. Even back then, that was like has to great exorcist might have been like the case who can like bring down any demon and like who can get rid of any possession and get who can destroy any demons or like monsters. The along the lines of the like the Crestone might have been people like absolutely popped up figure even back then in like in the might have been like the case the famous thing that then like it might have been solely through trickery and manipulation that I thought of Crestone in actuality while he might have had like he might have also used his powers for like villainous act and might and maybe for like stealing wealth and everything might have been what we might have done and by falsely frames a lot of like innocent individuals as like having been opposite by like living and everything might have been what just restaurant might have done in like my students alive might have been like the case, you know, so like there was that in that time like this the home that was there so in her was holding the particular might be like she might have had like submission power exactly like around mother. She might have had like submission drawing power maybe the case. So like all the visual all of her like vision drawings like she might have thrown up in this like kept on drawing into like that might have been like the so like she might have really had like all sorts of vision into like all the great number of crimes that your Maxwell might have been repeatedly committing and like but and how like Joseph Crackstone was like so might have been like so such an influential figure that like he might have really tricked and manipulated being able to like trick and manipulate like the public into that being that absolute into having like absolute faith and as like absolute believers in like Joseph Crackstone, especially like blind believer and followers in like Joseph Crackstone might have been like the case in that this in like still might have been like the case of minimum so like the fleet might have been like it might have been this alone who might have knew like the proof and proof or like session runs might have been like the case of minimum and like that she might have really tried to like convince like the truth of like drawing as for like what like the activity of integration is and might have even for like the price the criminal and everything like but still like all that might have her doing all that might have only come into like trouble kind of like a situation until like eventually once like Joseph that was not like Joseph Crackstone might have fallen onto like her and like Joseph Crackstone might have totally realized about like her mission powers and like her actually knowing the truth about like the Crackstone's like secret criminal all the secret criminal acts might feel like they definitely much greater. So like definitely like Joseph Crackstone at that point that might have decided to like rid of this like woman and that way like like Joseph Crackstone might have only even with like and supplement friendship even with like her was there that usually showing her vision drawings and everything as for like the actual detective for behind like all the claims of like Joseph Crackstone of like for the lifestyle of Crackstone and everything. So definitely, yeah. Even at that point, I'm like the one might have been absolute blind believers and followers of like those factions that like they might have still not only refuse to like believe like this girl and vision, but like eventually like the word might have gone into like into the years of like social faction and at that point it's like the faction might have been shocked and feeling present due to lack of knowing the proof that like those Crackstone might have decided to like get rid of that woman and like those Crackstone might have straight away done to like manipulation of the game by like calling her like by framing her as like a demon and that way like the faction might have like attempted to get like the public to like catch up and this woman can like bring her to like the faction might have been like the case that demon break that way like this might have got into like trouble with like the entire village back then might have been like searching for her to find like that might have been like the situation of being unstable. So like yet like she might have and yet like still she might have managed to like somehow escape might have been like the case the name of the definitely laugh and since then like she might have forget and like might have settled at like some region and like from there like like some descendants like eventually might have ended up becoming like the Adams family and like it might be sort of the long line of representation that might have ended up with like the Nutrition as well as like Wednesday and then like totally inherited like living power might have been like the least might be there. So like we will also that like going as well as like from mother like they both have vision power like me their family tree, while tracing upwards might be branched out, might have branched out at some point. Yet, like the core root of like that family tree might all lead towards that very specific girl, which uh, Wednesday saw information might be like that at that moment and might be like that very affection able study might of their interest. So like that way, but the brain is like Notisha and like around like mother as well as like Wednesday as well as like Owen like maybe also might be love related, might be like that with the academic relationship in the brain. Always say like that near when the manufacturing out of like so correct on back in like 1500 while like Wednesdays like long distance and stuff like that girl might have been like revealing about her visions about like the group behind like the group and about like the kind of like the question and that one straight away like just question finding that out about it like might have straight away might have framed as like being having like being buzzed by container and everything might have been which is like even though she might have managed to like escape like and actually that then like she might have barely managed to like escape and like years might have passed like she might have grown up and basically eventually she might have had hospitals might have been like the case in her friend. So get like maybe still even after that like I'm thinking like she might have it might be after that that she might have eventually once again got captured by that those Fraxton who might have been feeling that they are because of like having this like vision unique vision powers like which provides like eventual possibility of like maybe like the Fraxton like getting like actually getting exposed and basically like people actually realizing that the truth realizing the truth might be something that might have for that absolute the thing that the Crackstone that I think legal of Crackstone since then like or might have not been able to that publicly at all might have been that because the legal threat. So he might have been restless until like he, he wanted to like the industry find like uh, find and capture that so much before like basically like the project exposed to like obstacle so like the league like he might have been completely searching for her and might have eventually ended up after like great number of people he might have eventually ended up finding her. And so definitely my very impression is that like the exact location where like Joseph Crackstone might have committed that absolute crime and might have ended up taking out like that woman like a like the exact location or like she might be buried after like those tracks were taken out like maybe at that exact location that like burying like those tracks might have uh decided to like build he might have only built this like trick there to hide like he might have been feeling so uneasy even after like taking out that woman that he might have decided to like hide even like the burial site by like building this building of like just fractions, that just fractions like over might have been one might have happened. In that way, like that building might have been built in like in terms of that might have been like that incidents. So that lead the parameters for like what Wednesday had Wednesday believes what our vision that like Wednesday saw had like the also fraction that during like the focus portrait like might have been actually not a vision, but like might have been actually like Wednesday's like vision powers that basically coinciding with like the making it possible for like the soul of like that woman was buried like 300 by the villains. Joseph Crackstone like a Raxless spirit of her soul like basically uh that due to that Wednesday's like vision powers that it might have made it possible for like her to be able to like communicate like Wednesday. So like it might have been not a vision, but like basically what Wednesday saw. That girl that Wednesday saw might have been that woman itself like her soul like speaking to like Wednesday. Might have been like the case, definitely never. So like you thought that she might be something that that might have actually said to like might be something that she might have said to her offspring but it might have been only one flight. Conference might have been babies, so that eventually one flight, the perhaps one might have finally found her like she might have barely managed to save her offspring, and basically through that so different to that she might have turned herself in as like a boy to that. perfect might have been like the case, and she might have at that point before leaving her offspring to get herself captured like uh, that way that it might be at that point that she might have told to her that that she already might have been like the case limits were also on the other hand might have also become captured by Crackstone, and Crackstone might have not all realized about how having hospital might have been like that situation with limits were that way the police get some saying that those are the thief might be in that picture of they might be more an actual event that had taken place at that exact location and the correction but in actuality it might have been solely due to some being buried some soul or spirit being in the soul basically that way spirit basically showing up in that vision of that Wednesday and speaking directly to Wednesday might and telling Wednesday that secretly might be what might have actually happened and Wednesday might be at present while feeling that it's a vision in that the when I'm looking Wednesday will be realizing that it wasn't a vision but it was actually it's benefit them long term Wednesday. It's changing scenario that under the equation of three. So that way it might have been a scenario or member it might have been a scenario where that spirit might have been talking to Wednesday itself and adapting to Wednesday itself that basically Wednesday is the thing that will finally expose the winners of Robert Crackstone as well as descendant whom all might have encouraged that realistic characteristics of the correction and might have done all sorts of realistic things uh, might have been the case even all the way leading to the present day descendant of those correction which might definitely be better and so who might be also that's been with it and so to export all those absolute for proof and that way for the world to realize that Joseph Christian was such an absolute villain in that and about his criminal acts. This might have been that ultimate unsatisfied goal of that even during something might have been the case of limit revenge. So restless spirit might have been what might have showed up in Wednesday vision to communicate with Wednesday and just convey this message alone that Wednesday would what might have happened with Little Break. So the play might have been ambition and sitting on those but back when Morticia was student and kind of more even back then I'm during the book of and the spirit might have also in a similar manner might have also communicated with Morticia husband and might have told Morticia as well that she is the key and Morticia might have done some absolute that until the point of graduation to to find out the truth. And Motisha might have during her student days at Nevermore might have even ended up finding out the truth that basically about that Joseph Crackstone is an absolute villain at uh, uh, about his criminal acts and everything. So information about and everything might have been and through her personal investigation and everything might have been against the minimum thing. Yet everything Motisha might have still failed to expose that truth in the public and afterward might have been what I could definitely so that lead Navisha still might have been getting it all on Wednesday to eventually in her subversion powers and basically at that point what up to send Wednesday to and what might have been absolutely even to the person might be absolutely confident that even though she failed through Wednesday definitely her central skills wish that script of her and her own is uh, to expose civilians of the drugs to the stuff the world will be all succeeding. That goal will be succeeding through Wednesday will be at present that absolute confidence that Motica maybe that having the minimum frame which shows not only at present but it might have been that Motica might have had that absolute confidence in Wednesday for a long time. The minimum frame which shows. But this might be the reason for again Motica might have been patiently waiting until Wednesday in her power of vision for to have to send Wednesday to never know. Might have been the case, the minimum frame. So like naturally like Motisha might that way might have like Wednesday to like never not as soon as like Motisha might have found out that like Wednesday finally has interrupted like Motisha's meditation power might have been like the never correction. And the other thing that is putting us like maybe after like the question might have got rid of like that woman from like the 1600 who might have been that Wednesday's like and the stuff like from like 1600 like I'm referring that the question might have also that way stolen her book as well. Got finally acquired her book as well might have been actually definitely one information good yet like and those question might have gone through the book and might have been stopped and like those question might have quickly might have been about to that get rid of that the book as well. The Lehman frame. So like it might be at that point that yes, the framing might have ended up becoming an actual reality that like the spirit like and the spirit of like that and stuff demons like spirit like this might have actually showed up and the spirit might have found up that the correction might have been the Lehman frame. So like that way like I'm referring like that scare might have resulted in lack of Crackstone like totally like passing as well on that exact spot as well might have been what might have happened definitely my brain. So definitely because like a petrol mindset reaction that can totally putting as well like the percentage that the black book belong to the ancestor of that Wednesday uh might have definitely used that as proof this that book containing all that crucial information of like to that having like the power to like expose like Joseph Crackstone and basically uh, due to that uh, due to that the spirit of like basically of like that ancestor being in a careless state like I'm looking that even Joseph Crackstone's son might have on finding like the book might have attempted to like destroy like the book but like I'm looking like that book he might have definitely not been able to like destroy like the book no matter what he did. Uh, it's definitely what might have happened. So like that way like him probably getting scared and I'm looking for like him deciding to like okay hide the book. Him feeling as they are not the first but like hide the book and that way like he might have didn't like that book by burying it. Uh, might have been what might have happened and building like the Joker Christ stone like on top of it might have been like what might have happened in the spirit. So like a better picture point of view might have been exactly like a stone itself that might have was found like the past way like a stone might have been like the minimum range. So like Crackstone might have been holding this like book uh at that point it's definitely not range. So like Crackstone might have checked this like book and he might have suddenly found out the truth that like his like father from until that point like, he might have been seeing as like absolute hero was like a fake hero. Uh to gain up play some people like Paxton might have had like absolute failure but at that point it's definitely one straight. Yet like I'm like Paxton might have definitely straight away buried like the book right there itself definitely one great and definitely that might have been maybe cracks up like Paxton like passing it might have been cracked that might have quickly like built the like grip of like the racks on right on top of it to hide like the joke as well as like the buried ancient ancestor of Black Wednesday. Okay, so like a few more potential that like those Crackstone might have had like a bunch of friends and basically like the meeting house might be like just might be like the present day version of like the meeting house of like the Crackstone might be like the secret library and like the night shift like a meeting in like secret library within like definitely might be like it's definitely necessary. So the like the dimension right now is that like the original black tip of like the girl from that confession might be actually at like the current beneath like the Crackstone's like that might be like the actual computers the human prevention that is thinking of it. So like definitely it might be a fake black book that's like at present like present in like the meeting house of like those Crackstones. Definitely my prevention. So definitely I'm only preparing for like Wednesday most likely uh finding that out without much delay at all. Definitely my prevention. So like definitely I'm preparing right now maybe at like Wednesday such a like the black book in like the meeting house of Crackstone, like and like Wednesday maybe having a vision and basically through that vision like I'm made Wednesday getting an idea for like this that like that book just like fake and not the real original black. philosophy, like federal from that. It's like the scenario that is trying to okay, so like the new information right now that like they never know academy building that the exact location where it is like might have been like also the exact location where like the original meeting house of like JosephCrackstone was all the way back in like the 1500 might have been like that to the definitely number. So like back then like to the contemporaries might have been like JosephCrackstone's like passing that like just like some might have been like supposed to like find out about this like heroic feats which like the public believes. So like that needs to affect all that secret like the liberal like in like that person meeting house like at that point and like the some of like just questions might have checked like the original meeting house of like just question uh and might have he might have shockingly found like all sorts of like proof evidence connecting to like also exposing like the response like villains and everything within that meeting also like I'm referring that meeting might have like straight away. So like we might have like and that's why like we did like first and like like all of that the evidence that might have been presented at that meeting house and we might have quickly gotten rid of all that evidence that so itself might have been like it is definitely not great but so lovely and like he might have been still feeling extremely insecure like basically uh, when you're and fixing your there that basically like we might have decided to like even destroy like the meeting house and like we might have failed at a really different building. And that way like eventually after like great number of years like I'm producing like that building might have eventually been destroyed. And like that the very same descendants eventual descendants of like the very same bloodline of like the Crackstone itself like might have totally destroyed that building and basically might have decided to like build like the Nevermore again might have been coordinated under the city and that way like the present location of like Nevermore where like the entire building of like the Nevermore Academy is like basically it might have been at that core location of that building where like the original meeting house of like Joseph Crackstone might have been presented back during like the 1600. It might be like days of the human period. Okay, so like the Linux branch right now that like say that might be totally aware that like here's like Edgar Allan Poe's that son might be like the case of Linux branch that so that was like what's extremely famous that of like failure. Ajax talks about might be naturally might be like Edgar Allan Poe's that name going to them. So yeah, like I'm the different like in the case of like Enid Sinclair, like I'm the different like Enid Sinclair might be not aware of that like beams is like Enid Sinclair number might be like actual representations of movement brain, which would say yet like Enid Sinclair as well as like Savior might be naturally might be sibling and even and like definitely then about that like definitely obviously that both Enid Sinclair as well as Savior might be having absolutely no idea definitely my book the range. So it's like the name of the range so right now it's definitely got like anything like basically finally having top like transformation happening into that the weapon on this very united that was like the scenario that I'm putting and like the blow moon and like happening in like every 23 years like and that just different in like the series of like Wednesday like would be ending up becoming like the triggering factor which control reporting would be operating in like any singular like transformation and any singular would be having absolutely no control over a transformation at that point of like the scenario and that resulting in like any singular like losing control and basically like turning into like this like monsters werewolves and basically like out of control like basically like attacking like Ajax and like Ajax that way hitting the ground. That's like the scenario that I'm supposed to be and like definitely I'm going the scenario to be that and it's similar like and like in like a romantic scene like by talking to like Ajax would be like staring at like the blue moon and like I'm just like once and like anything that would be watching like the blue moon like and like anything that not being able to like take her eyes off like the blue moon and anything that's like a facial expression change it from like all smiles to like suddenly serious and basically like the transformation where transformation happening to like anything that and definitely for the thing like anything that totally without any control at all like basically was taking out like Ajax and then it's like anything that taking out like Ajax like how like that can appear yeah would was like in like the middle of the night in the middle of the Bruno night of like scenario that and like Nitin Lab fan facing through like the forest with like transformation like finally happening like with the then uncontrollable manner like fan facing through like the forest was like now more like scenario that I'm and definitely able by morning like and I'm putting this out of like where was out of like Nitin Lab like and like even Wednesday like from like dorm room in Ikea, just like how loud how like where was like the scenario that I'm visible or like how it's like the scenario that I'm so yeah like I'm like maybe only one like Wednesday would be falling asleep that like I'm disappointed that anything like when taking through like the box would be without any consequence at all like or like awareness at all like anything there like they would be eventually like only ending up like running back to the normal human form and basically like even going all the way up to like the long road and basically like to prospect as well and not be even aware of like doing all of that scenario like before. So like I'm totally bring that once it's like morning like anything like waking up for that absolute shocking news of like hey that's just like passing like the scenario that I was over. And definitely I'm looking like at that. And at that point I was trying like for anything that would be totally inferior and basically would be trying and basically would be like telling Wednesday alone about like how remembering like the previous night like basically talking to like and spending time with like Asia and like she can't remember anything else of that. Like the girl was like would be telling uh Wednesday at that point is like the scenario that I was bringing. And definitely was like Wednesday that person like all reading well and fully aware that like definitely even though like from Wednesday's perspective, like even though in Singular can't transform still like the fact that in Singular itself has like previously like Wednesday that like she is like aware of like Wednesday of the connecting that as well as like that out of like the world that Wednesday might have noticed that um, uh, in the previous night as well. Like the scenario that I'm visible for. And at that point, like the hand thing as well would be telling most likely Wednesday that this week that in its simpler like basically only like came to bed like very late previous night one while it was like almost night with along the lines and like things would be communicated that Wednesday. So like at that point is when I'm different that Wednesday most likely connecting the dots and come down to the conclusion that like basically that like anything left has like the issue of like the uh, uh, having that uncontrollable like werewolf transformation that would be along the lines like I'm telling you when state of the as well as like in similar especially will be won't be able to like handle it and like dropping realization that like some cell like has taken out like either to see love so much that is like the scenario that I'm looking for like and I'm totally running like eventually like the user like the blow on like like in the series of like Wednesday, like I'm so different, like usually like the series are like a red moon aspect happening is like with another that so like suddenly I was different like most likely anything that I'm like having two unique and distinct wearable transformation that one for like the blue moon and that one for like the red moon. Uh, and like the true transformation like the powers that in similarity for processing as well would be totally unique and different and distinct from each other. Which transformation is like also like living scenario there. So like definitely I'm looking like Wednesday from that point on eventually like putting in that effort to like basically without to like have in singular be able to be Wednesday at that point being that as different and basically being there for like with in singular and basically Wednesday is putting in that effort to like uh in singular to be able to like control or like transformation that way through Wednesday self eventually I'm totally finding that taking a while before like through like the consistent effort of like Wednesday like we are like finally being able to like control or like where transformative is like the intention art that under the world of a channel. Yeah, so like but name of friends and right now for like Wednesday while checking like the meeting house of like Crackstone I'm looking like eventually the scenario ending up situation ending up with like a bunch of friends and then like showing up to that kind of at like that like type of have fun like the I'm totally putting like a bunch of friends that they showing up uh, to that like meeting of locations like the scenario that and then spotting Wednesday and that as they will be coming out on that Wednesday. And that point I'm looking like the sheriff showing up just like the scenario that I'm describing. So that way like sir, like loser like I'm doing that this time not being able to stop like the criminals is like that I'm doing, and then that way or like the sheriff and like the sheriff getting like badly injured is like within our requirement. So at that point as like the criminals would go on the Indian like Wednesday, even though Wednesday would be giving it absolute best like and still have getting forward is like within our requirement. So like once like Wednesday would be in such an extremely tricky kind of like a situation. Like at that point is when I'm preparing most likely for that Edith Sinclair like most likely by then the blue moon resulting in anything having the werewolf uncontrollable werewolf transformation and basically anything instantly taking out like Ajax and basically then anything by rampaging through like the force like and like, ending up by your point of anything in the werewolf form like is the charging and towards like that exact like meeting house location and destroying like the meeting house like the scenario that I'm referring. So definitely they are like straight away like this like werewolves in a similar like would be straight away taking out like all the criminals like scenario that I'm looking for and like then would be like without any control like like not being able to having absolutely no awareness. So like after taking out like the criminals like I'm thinking like from similar at that point in terms of like the sheriff like basically like quickly would be by then that would be getting up and basically be trying to like protect Wednesday from like the werewolves like was not that ambassador. So like the werewolves straight away like attacking the sheriff and like the sheriff getting so extremely badly injured at that point like and sidelined of that point like scenario that so like after that the sheriff would be getting sidelined like the werewolves would be about to like attack Wednesday at that very last second and the different that at that point Wednesday would be seriously scared of like it's not that like at that very last second that like the werewolf will be about to like attack Wednesday like even though in similar or like werewolf form won't be at all conscious won't be at all aware of the things that she will be uncontrollably doing like and still or due to that by now that absolute bond of friendship getting formed between that and Wednesday due to that absolute depth in the friendship that like in similar by now might have felt in her friendship towards like Wednesday topic and the closeness that she might have by now felt towards like Wednesday like I'm friend that has like in similarity in her where we won't be able to like attack Wednesday like so looking at that with last again like in similar like stopping and basically like the werewolf like that way staring at like Wednesday's face and basically like the werewolf in similar like being able to like remotely sense like something a familiar face that that to a tiny bit of like an information like the scenario that I'm saying. And at that point, like the werewolf stopping, and like the werewolf, like at that point, the people like running away from there, and basically it's like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like at that point, I'm looking for like Wednesday would be feeling something off about like the werewolf, attacking Wednesday, like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like then like I'm looking for like Wednesday helping the sheriff out and basically that way like I'm looking like one like Wednesday will be and that way like the sheriff definitely surviving through Wednesday's help was like the scenario that I'm looking even though like the sheriff had like that just like towards like Bomas like Wednesday's father like and still time eventually ending up with like creating such a situation where like Wednesday ending up saving like the life of like the sheriff was like the scenario that I'm looking that way the sheriff being in that situation towards like Wednesday, like the scenario that I'm looking and definitely uh, Wednesday at that point definitely without great delay will be making it back to like Nevermore Academy to Rombo. And at that point I'm looking like Wednesday will be most likely seeing like anything like after like the scenario that I'm looking. So like at that point like Wednesday won't be something anything, but like the next day like once like Wednesday would be waking up like and would be shockingly finding out about like the news of like about like Ajax of like popping like at that point I'm looking from like yes, Wednesday would be shocked to see like anything left still would be possibly and like that would be only partly unusual for like anything left just like the scenario that I'm looking because like anything left each day might be of like having the habit of like waking up early and getting ready early like the scenario that but that day alone like the scenario to me like anything left like not waking up even after like it might like time might be days and almost time for class like looking at that and everything. So that Wednesday will be feeling something often like Wednesday would be waking up to that anything that hesitation and that anything like something finding out that way about like the short news of like Ajax was passing and like anything at that point he'll be in tears and will be and at that point like anything would be like closely telling Wednesday sort of like basically remembering while in tears that was about like sort of remembering like talking to like Ajax like the previous night on like the blue moonlight that uh, would be along the lines and similar would be telling Wednesday and that Wednesday probably connecting the dots and like Wednesday like would be suddenly realizing that like about like the situation of like anything that of laptop being that both as well as laptop not being able to control so it's like is like the scenario that I'm expressed. So like Wednesday at that point is like being that as a genuine friend for like anything and like comforting her and like basically generally helping putting in all that effort to like help anything be able to like control some like where would go to like this scenario management. So like after that like the low moon night would also be the I'm talking about like the low moon night like activating like and granting the access for like anything to access government like the for like the scenario like that way like anything being able to like, transform into like the value. So like after that incident like I'm able to like through space like help like I'm like anything consciously being able to eventually consciously being able to like turn into like a where using will you know is like the eventual without the need of like any full moon or like low moon is like doing this scenario that I'm experiencing.